action, if any, do you think U.S. Soccer might take against Rapinoe?
Well, this will be really interesting to watch, Amy, because in the wording in the statement from U.S. Soccer, they said an expectation. They did not say a punishment necessarily was coming. So one may be coming, one may not. The U.S. women play again this Sunday in Minneapolis in another friendly. Megan Rapinoe is expected to be with the team, but her coach, Jill Ellis, has said that they would have to revisit this topic and talk about maybe potential punishments if she took a knee last night, which she did. So this is still a very developing story, and it does take things to a new level when you do it in a U.S. national team uniform as opposed to your club team. Now, Megan Rapinoe says that makes it even more worthwhile to have the kind of conversations she wants to have about what Kaepernick has raised, in particular, police treatment of Black Americans. Now, this game took place in Columbus last night, just the same day or the day after a 13-year-old Black Columbus resident was killed by police.
Do you think that Rapinoe is going to continue kneeling during the national anthem?
That's a very good question. I mean, she's going to get a lot of pressure now from U.S. Soccer, I think, and her coach, Jill Ellis, to find some other way to get her message across. But she's also got a lot of supporters who want her to keep doing this. And so she has said for now that she plans to continue doing it, but there's a lot that's up in the air.
Another one of soccer's biggest stars, Abby Wambach, just released a book entitled Forward, where she opened up about her struggles with alcohol and substance abuse. Grant, you read this book. What was the biggest surprise to you about her story?
Well, I spent a lot of time covering Abby Wambach over the years for Sports Illustrated. Did an in-depth magazine story on her before last year's World Cup, visited her at her house. I had heard talk behind the scenes about alcohol issues. I did not know they were as severe as what she writes about in the book. I did not know about prescription drug abuse that she writes about in detail in the book. We're talking about stuff like Ambien, Vicodin, Adderall, things like that. So pretty serious situation. Now, Abby Wambach got a DUI earlier this year, and she says that ever since then, she has not been on pills, she has not been on alcohol, and it's a process. It's a very candid book. It reminds me a lot of Andre Agassi's autobiography that he came out with a few years ago that we're not used to seeing from big sports stars being this honest.
How damaging do you think these revelations are to Abby's image?
We'll have to wait and see on that one, you know. She's no longer playing. She works in the media. She has a deal with ESPN. Endorsement-wise, she still has connections to companies. I don't think she's lost any of those endorsements as a result of this. But in some ways, this can be inspirational. That's what she's trying to do by coming clean in a way about all this stuff. But there are going to be some fans who have viewed her as a role model who I think will be very surprised.
Certainly honorable that she is willing to be honest about some of the things that she's gone through. Let's talk some of the up-and-comers. We've seen a lot of young U.S. men's players playing really, really well in Europe. Of these guys, who should we be keeping an eye on here?
Well, there's a few young Americans doing really well in Europe right now. The foremost among them is Christian Pulisic, playing for Borussia Dortmund in Germany. There were some questions about would he get much playing time this year with all of the guys that they brought in over the summer, and he started and played all 90 minutes in their Champions League game midweek, got an assist, looked very good. That's great news for him, great news for the U.S. national team as well. But he's not the only one. Now, Bobby Wood is with Hamburg. He just joined this Bundesliga team this year. 2 goals in 2 games, off to a great start. It was good news just that he was starting for them, but to be scoring at this rate, very promising for Bobby Wood. And then Lyndon Gooch is a guy who hasn't played much for the U.S. national team, but he's been getting a lot of starts in the Premier League for Sunderland. Young guy, exciting talent, very promising right now for U.S. players in Europe.
How bright do you think the future of men's soccer is in international play?
Well, you know, you look at the U.S. national team, and they have 2 very big games coming up in November. So it's a little while, but it's the first 2 games of the final round of World Cup qualifying. Mexico at home, arch rival, November 11th in Columbus, followed by a very tough game at Costa Rica. So you want the U.S. players to be in form for that. But Jurgen Klinsmann's team is going through a real positive stretch right now.
All right, so let's turn to MLS. League-leading Dallas FC won their first of what could be 3 trophies on Tuesday night in U.S. Open Cup. What's the key to their success?
Well, a lot of things right now. Mauro Diaz, to me, is potentially the best player in MLS, just pulling the strings from the number 10 position. He's been a great acquisition. But I've been very impressed with Oscar Pereja, the coach, and his willingness to use young guys, because so many MLS coaches are afraid to play young players. Not Dallas. They've developed a lot of these guys like Kellen Acosta inside their academy, and they've had more success with youth development than any other team in MLS, and they can make history here. No U.S. club has ever won 3 trophies in 1 year. They've just won one, the U.S. Open Cup. They have the Supporters Shield for the league's best record, and then the MLS Cup final still to come, and they have the best record in MLS right now.
You know, Tom lives and breathes football. He's you know, a tremendous competitor and has a great work ethic, and he just absolutely loves the game of football. So